go for the final time. We are green! Oh, they make contact! A terrible crash!
We're in it.
The chase for the championship continues on here on the NNSCRA Sports Channel as we get ready now for chase race number 2 across the border. Welcome everybody to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park as we get ready here for our second chase race, and it's our second race of the first round of the chase. Drivers that had good runs last week at Chicagoland going to try and continue to have good run here today, but drivers that did not have good runs, well, they definitely need to use today's race to be able to bounce back, to get themselves out of the danger zone, because 4 drivers next week will be eliminated from this season's chase for the championship. And these drivers here that came in, the 16 drivers, don't want it to be any of them. They're going to have to see if here today at a caution-free race at an international, well, not really international, but I guess you could call it international. Yeah, it would be considered international, even though it is in the same continent. But it's going to be a road course race here, 16 laps of racing. Now, we ended up coming here last season. I believe it was last season. It might have been the season before. No, actually it was. It was back in season 8 in the Oreo Truck Series. And I remember John Cittadino going to victory lane in that event. We haven't yet, since then, been to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, but we're here today for Snickers Cup Series action. Pichu London starts on the pole position alongside of Bob Jones, 2 drivers that are still looking for their first wins of the season, both of them non-chasers as well. As a matter of fact, last week, we end up having a non-chaser go to victory lane. And so we'll see if the trend continues here, because Chris Dollerton's win last week, if a non-chaser wins here this week, then we'd end up having kind of shades from Season 8 when Danny Wells, who was at that point a non-chaser, ended up winning the first 2 races of the chase as a non-chaser. Chris Dollerton, as a matter of fact, is rolling off from the 4th position here today. Dollerton trying to pick up his 2nd straight victory if he could. He'll start right behind his Michael Norman Motorsports teammate, behind the 27 of Bob Jones. Now, let's concentrate a little bit here on the chasers coming into this race. Jacob Lawler ended up having a very solid run last week at Chicagoland. He is the points leader coming to this race. Over 6 points over Dougie Shears, who was also tied with the highest finishing chaser last week at Chicagoland, Ryan Acosta. They both are 6 points back. Sean Galligan jumped up to 4th in points. He's 10 points out. Then you got James Qualls and Austin LaPlante. They both jumped up to 5th and 6th, 11 points out. And then Trent Dunham actually lost 5 spots last week. He dropped to 7th in the standings, still 12 points out, though, still makeable. But Trent Dunham, from what I can see visually, he's rolling off from the 41st position. So Trent's going to have track position against him here today. He's going to have to fight tooth and nail to get himself up there towards the front. Danny Wells comes in 8th in points. He is 16 points out. Jessica Shelton dropped a number of spots after her hardship last week at Chicagoland. She's 9th in points, 18 points total out. Tim Walsh also fell in the standings to 10th. He's 20 points back. And then the other drivers that are just barely right now in the top 12 would be Cole Daly and John Cittadino. The 4 drivers we got to keep an eye on during the course of this race would be Richard Johnson. He dropped to 13th in points last week. Cody Lamas, he's 14th in points. Dylan Poteet lost 12 positions last week after a dead last finish. I think he was dead last, or else he was way down in the finishing results. He was down in the 40s, I remember that. He's 15th in points, and our defending champion, Brandon Gonzalez, also who found hardship last week at Chicagoland, he comes into this race 16th out of the 16 chase drivers. So definitely those drivers, Johnson, Lamas, Poteet, and Gonzalez, need good runs here today. Now, Poteet's rolling off from third. I'm trying to see where the other ones are. Looks like Richard Johnson and Cody Lamas are actually starting near the rear of the field, and I'm trying to find the 23 of Gonzalez. Looks like he's starting mid-pack there on the inside line. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to go down trackside to get the man to fire the engines. The driver of the number 21 Chaser, Dougie Shears, will now give us those most famous words in motorsports. Let's go down there trackside now.
Drivers, start your engine.
So this will certainly be interesting to see what happens here. You got a couple of chasers up there starting near the front, and track position at the road course certainly is key. You got Dylan Poteet, Jessica Shelton, Ryan Acosta, Sean Galligan, all starting off there inside the top 10. Anyway, though, we're moments away from getting the green flag here. One thing I've noticed about this track, too, is that there is very little passing, but these drivers have got a different setup here than the truck drivers did. Green flag out here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Chase race number 2 is underway. And like I said, it's caution-free. Whatever happens, well, it happens. There will be no yellow flags to bunch everybody up as Pichu London gets out ahead. The second place driver, Bob Jones, did a nice job of getting himself in line there. Battles on for third between Chris Dollarton and Dylan Poteet. Poteet will take that position, and now Jessica Shelton looks to follow him on through. Down the downhill section. And here's where they come to the toughest part of this track. This is a hard braking zone right here. This is where you're going to see a lot of drivers run into trouble. Bob Jones, Dylan Poteet both go off track. So does Dollarton, so does Ryan Acosta. And Shelton, just like that, bang, bang, goes from 4th to 2nd. Let's check the back, see if anybody's run into trouble. Well, nobody is damaged in that respect, but you see a number of drivers there having difficulty with that turn. And look at one of the drivers that we were talking about that really needs a good run, Brandon Gonzalez. He is back here, dead last in the chase points, and now he is running dead last on the track. Cody Lamas also not doing too well either. He was scored 36th for the start of this race. He's now back, I think that would be 39th. He just took away from Dylan Young. Jacob Lawler back here as well in the 5. And Tim Walsh and Trent Dunham and Richard Johnson. So 3 of the drivers that came into this race needing good runs are all back here. That being Richard Johnson, Cody Lamas, and Brandon Gonzalez. Whoa, Trent Dunham! Wide through that corner, gets into fellow chaser Tim Walsh. Not the first time we've seen those two rubbing doors in their NNSCRA careers. Further up, that's where we're going to find another chaser in John Cittadino. Right now 24th, right behind Dougie Shears and Austin LaPlante and Danny Wells. So the chasers are all kind of clumped up here. See if there's be any battle for position here through this hard right-hander, and Austin LaPlante gets off track, as does John Cittadino. So Levi McIntyre is going to bypass 2 chasers right there. Anthony Curry trying to do the same. There's Danny Wells in the 4. Now, back in Season 8 when he was a non-chaser, he won the first 2 chase races of the season. Those were, at that time, at Daytona and I believe Darlington. It was either Daytona and Darlington or Daytona and Dover. I can't remember which one it is. I want to say it was Daytona and Darlington. This season, the first 2 races taking place at Chicagoland and here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I forgot to actually bring our ticker up as well. I apologize for that. Further up, there's James Qualls. James Qualls, his only victory this season came at a road course at Watkins Glen. Or not Watkins Glen, Sonoma. Although that race ended up having caution flags, this race does not. Further up here, try and find another chaser. There's Cole Daly in the 88. Daly, 11th in points, really needs a good run here to get himself away from 13th in the standings. Right now, running in 11th place, good run for him. As you see Sean Galligan trying to reel in fellow chaser Ryan Acosta. Both those drivers jumped up significantly in the chase points last week after good runs at Chicagoland. Ryan Acosta was the highest finishing chaser. I think Acosta finished in 7th or 8th, and Galligan finished just outside the top 10 and 11th. Both of them running the top 10 right now. Up front, Pichu London enjoying the view. He's got a pretty good advantage, about maybe a second and a half. See if it grows between himself and Jessica Shelton. No, Shelton actually closed it up by about a tenth. About a tenth and a half. Good view with the pace car. Bob Jones trying to reel in Jessica Shelton. Then behind them, you got a battle on for 4th place. DJ Curtis right now running the highest of the rookies in 4th. And you got Dylan Poteet right behind him in the 5th position. Keep in mind, if a chaser wins this race today, or next week's race, they're automatically locked into the next round regardless of where they are in the chase points. And right now, the only driver who really looks like a win would benefit them the most might be Dylan Poteet. Jessica Shelton comes into this race 9th in the standings. The good run she's having, if she remains there in 2nd place, she'll probably be in pretty good situation heading to next week, which, by the way, is going to be at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's where our first elimination race will be taking place, so certainly going to be a far cry from the twists and turns of this road course for these drivers. As London continues to lead, Pichu London, former Mobile and Cup Series champion, but it's been a long time since he's been to Victory Lane, a Snickers Cup Series event. He's had several opportunities this season, but just not been able to really close the deal. Just ran his fastest lap of the race that time. But Jessica Shelton must have run a faster one because she just cut it down a little bit more. No, actually she didn't. She did not run her fastest lap. She was about a 10th slower than her 8 tenths slower, actually. No, 8/100 slower. That's what it is. 8/100 slower than her fastest lap. Fastest lap of 1:13.629. London's is a 1:13.747, which he just ran the last time around. London didn't really get through that turn very well. He got a bit of the grass. It looks like Shelton's closing the gap up even more now, as is Bob Jones in the 27. And now Shelton's all over Pichu London's back bumper. London, who was all by himself, just had to really hit his mark. Kind of messed up that hard right-hander. Got 2 tires off into the grass where there's no grip. The tires actually spin. And it lost him momentum. Shelton got through the turn nicely, and now she's going to challenge him for the lead. Out of the final corner, she dips to the outside, then crosses over. Can't make the move yet. And now she's going to peel to the inside, heading here into 1. London going to try and get the run off the corner. Does. But Shelton right in his back bumper. Look at London blocking the lane there for Jessica Shelton to get a good entry into that corner and try and make a move. Shelton is still all over his back bumper, and maybe the place to make the move for Shelton could be that right-hander where she was able to close the distance up between herself and London the last time around. And I'm looking at London's lap time as opposed to last time. It was almost a full second slower, and that has to be because of that turn that he messed up. Here we go. Let's see if Shelton makes her move here. London cuts it hard in. Shelton that time was the one that kind of messed up, got a little bit of the grass, and now London pulls back away. Let's look at the back of the field again, see where our chasers are. Looks like they've been able to make a little bit of progress. Tim Walsh now the furthest back in 40th. London, or make that Lawler just ahead of him. Richard Johnson just ahead of that. Trent Dunham just ahead of that. And Brandon Gonzalez just ahead of that. And now Brandon's off track again. Dunham goes by. Richard Johnson now looking to go by. Jacob Lawler and Tim Walsh waiting to see what line will open up as well. Brandon Gonzalez has his hands full right now in that 23. It'd be a shame if the defending champion of this series was eliminated in the very first round, but right now it's not looking good for the 23 of Gonzalez. And the ironic thing is, too, Brandon Gonzalez started mid-pack. Most of these other guys here, like Lawler and Walsh and Dunham and Johnson, they started at the rear of the field. So they didn't fall back here, they started back here, but Brandon Gonzalez literally fell back here. Now, Jacob Lawler, this is okay somewhat for him in the fact that he's the points leader coming into this race. So he can kind of afford a bad race at the moment. Between himself and 12th in the standings, there's 29 points. So this is not too bad for him. And the good news for him is he's back with the company of drivers such as Tim Walsh, Richard Johnson, Brandon Gonzalez, and this is going to allow him to still maybe maintain his gap between them. He may not be the points leader heading into our Indianapolis race, though, as right now I would say that would probably be honest for that would be between Ryan Acosta and Sean Galligan. Looking at Cody Lamas, he's been like one of the few drivers that started at the back of the pack that's actually been making some progress. Right now scored in the 28th position, and I think he rolled off in 39th place, if I'm not mistaken. So Cody Lamas has done a good job of picking his way through the field. He's now all over Nathan Hudson for what would be the 27th position. So Cody doing a good job here. Who says you can't pick up spots on track? Well, apparently that's not the case here, as I think I just saw Jessica Shelton was closing in again on Pichu London for the lead. She's gotten by him, actually. Jessica Shelton's now the new leader. She was about 2 100ths behind him at the line. They may have photo finished that lap. And now Shelton has gotten by Pichu London for the top position, just nearing the halfway point. The new leader, Jessica Shelton in the 25. Two-time winner this season. Matter of fact, Jessica Shelton, up until this point, had never had a multiple-win season. She came in her very first season, driving the 13 as a fill-in driver, ended up going to victory lane, but only had one win that season. Then back, I think it was in season 8, she ended up having only one victory. That was at Talladega Super Speedway. It was enough to qualify her into the chase, but she never had a multiple-win season, so when she ended up picking up her second win of the season here in season 10, that was the first time ever Jessica Shelton went to victory lane more than once in a single Snickers Cup Series season. And right now, she's starting to pull away from Pichu London, who his turn is pulling away from the new third-place driver, DJ Curtis. Bob Jones losing a spot to the Rookie of the Year contender, DJ Curtis, out of Gibbs Waltrip Mayonnaise Racing, and Dylan Poteet trying to close in on these two as well in what would be a three-way battle for third. I believe, I might be wrong, but I think DJ Curtis is 2 points behind Austin Mongold in the Rookie of the Year standings. Right now, with where he's running, he would close that up to just 1 point heading into next week. The battle's actually been really, really ferocious now between Mongold and DJ Curtis. Ever since DJ really closed the gap up with his victory at Coca-Cola Speedway. That closed the gap up significantly, pretty much because he ended up getting those bonus points for that victory. He ended up getting 5 bonus points for the win. He also ended up getting a bonus point for leading a lap on a night that Mongold did not lead a lap. So that was 6 points right there, as opposed to the 1 point that Austin Mongold received for his night's racing. Bob Jones is the one that's starting to free fall now. Lost third place to DJ Curtis, about to maybe lose another spot to Dylan Poteet. And look who's closing in as well. Chris Dollerton. Talk about somebody that flicked a switch and now is on go. That'd be Chris Dollerton, who was strong last week at Chicagoland. Ended up taking home the victory, and now Dollerton running 6th place following up that victory. Really good run for him here today. And right behind him, we talked about DJ Curtis having a good run. How about his team owner, Charles Jackson, right now, running very strongly in the 7th position. I talked with Charles Jackson, and obviously that team very disappointed that he wasn't able to battle for the final Snickers Cup Series championship, former champion back in season 7. But he said they're just going to go out there and try and win a race before the season's over now. A number of drivers actually have said that. One other one, actually, a couple cars behind him, Charles Samper, who was a 3-time winner last season. Charles Samper this season failing to make the chase for the championship. And Charles Samper just trying to get wins now. Been a bit of a struggling season for that 03 team. A driver that was in the Final 4 for the championship last season. Stephen Powell III just ahead of him. Great run there for the Volkswagen Jetta. As Jessica Shelton continues to lead, she's maintained about a second advantage between herself and Pichu London. London has really not let the 25 get away. And with that being said, London is within striking distance if Jessica Shelton makes a mistake. But up to this point, Shelton has not made a mistake. And she right now continues to lead this race. One of her wins this season actually came at a road course. It was at Watkins Glen. It was all on fuel mileage, but still it was a road course victory. So if Shelton can close the deal here in this race, that'd be her second win this season at a road course. It also would tie her with Jacob Lawler and Trent Dunham for most wins this season with 3. But Pichu London, he's not going away yet. Don't count out that 22. And we also have the question of possible pit stops here in the closing stages of this race. They've never raced Snickers Cup Series here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. So we don't know what the fuel mileage is, and there's a couple cars on pit road. Oh, Zach Buchanan's on pit road, and there was another one. That's Austin Mongold, and they're damaged. I don't know why they're damaged. Oh, there's some skid marks right there. Just out of turn 1, some skid marks. And so we must have had a wreck take place. There's Chaser Austin LaPlante. He's got damage on the right side and rear of the STP4 Fusion. LaPlante, who moved up to 6th in the chase points last week at Chicagoland. Looking to see if anybody else is involved. Doesn't look like it, as Zach Buchanan now is leaving pit road. Let's see what the scoring monitor says, if anybody else was involved. Oh, looks like Joshua Collard maybe out of the race. He scored in 42nd. So we're getting close to the end of this race here. Jessica Shelton leading Pichu London. We're going to quickly break away just to take a look and see what that wreck was, and then we'll come back for the finish of this event. This was back on lap number 10. Austin Mongold battling Austin LaPlante, and I believe it was for the 30th position. And boy, the 60, I don't know if the 60 or the 43, one of them thought they were clear apparently, and they both made contact. There's Joshua Collard where he got involved. LaPlante's car gets airborne and then up onto the hood of Zach Buchanan's machine. And boy, it's a wonder LaPlante is still running after that hard lick from both the 9 of Joshua Collard and the 09 of Zach Buchanan. And boy, right down in front of a lot of chasers there, having to avoid Walsh, Johnson, and Dunham. There's Lawler. Everybody fortunately able to get by that machine. And that's a worse place for a driver to be sideways too, is at the kind of the apex, just coming up over the hill, the downhill portion of that hill, because there's very little time to react. But fortunately, everybody was able to scatter. That was one of the more roomier parts of this track for everybody to be able to avoid. And Austin LaPlante is still running on the lead lap, but as you can see, he's very, very badly damaged. Zach Buchanan, Austin Mongold had to come to pit road, and we have received word Joshua Collard has officially retired from this race. So both of the Richard Petty Motorsports cars involved in this, along with Mongold and Buchanan. Let's go back now for the finish of this race, as we are still green here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Jessica Shelton just crossed the line and received the signal of 3 to go, and her lead between herself and the 22 of Pichu London is growing. It is now a second and a half between herself and London. Pichu London actually is all by himself. That is third place DJ Curtis. Bob Jones runs in fourth place. You can see the gap between each driver. Dylan Poteet there in fifth. Chris Dollichon trying to reel him in for that top 5. He's in 6th. Then you got Charles Jackson 7th. Stephen Paul in 3rd is in 8th. Then a long ways back to Charles Samper in 9th. And then in 10th, it's Ryan Acosta. And there's Cole Daly right now running in 11th. Nice run there for the 88. Mentioned how he came into this race 11th in the standings, only about 6 points ahead of 12th in points. Really needed a good run, and now he's getting it, looks like, just outside of the top 10. And Sean Galligan for the second straight week just outside of the top 10, currently in the 12th position. So Galligan having a good run as well. One of those last-minuters making it into the chase with his win in the regular season finale at Rockingham, UK. But it's looking like our highest finishing chaser is going to be our race winner, potentially, Jessica Shelton, unless Pichu London can do something quick. He just cut it down by about a 10th that lap, but he's only got 2 more laps to work with. So either London has to find some line here that gives him a huge advantage, or Jessica Shelton has to really mess up. And I'm not really sure if either one's going to happen. Jessica Shelton's been very strong. Quite honestly, she hasn't been stronger than Pichu London. The only reason why Jessica Shelton, though, really was able to get out here in front was because London beat himself up. Pichu London had been messing up one of those corners. That's what cost him. Shelton was able to close in, was able to get the advantage on him, take away the top position. I'd say for the most part that the 25 and the 22 are pretty much equal on how strong they are. Just came down to who ran this track better, and it was clearly the 25. At Heading into the final corner here, Jessica Shelton about to receive the white flag here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. A victory would mean she's into the next round of the chase regardless of what happens next week at Indianapolis. Let's see if London can do anything. He closed the gap up again. He's now only 1.3 back, but only in the last 3 laps, he's only been able to close up 0.3, a tenth every lap, and that's not going to get it done. He needs Shelton to make a mistake here, but Shelton, I'm not sure, is going to. Shelton's got that gap there too, so in that right-hander where most drivers have been making mistakes, she can maybe take that turn a little bit easier and not really have Pete Chulin on her back bumper. Let's see how conservative she takes this right-hander, which is going to be coming up here just at the crest of this hill. Let's see what she does here. Backs it down to about 40 miles per hour. Hits the rumble strip, does not touch the grass, and Jessica Shelton now may be home free. She's just got to hit her marks on these other sections. That was a bit of a conservative turn, if you will, but she could afford something like that too. She didn't want to end up losing this race on the final lap on one of the most difficult turns on this road course. Pichu London is there, but he's not there close enough to make a move. He's within striking distance if Shelton made a mistake, but she's not going to make a mistake. Jessica Shelton's locked into the next round of the chase, her 3rd win of the season, her 1st win here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park as Jessica Shelton takes the checkered flag here across the border. So Jessica Shelton, her 3rd win of the season, tying her with Trent Dunham and Jacob Lawler for most this season, and her 2nd win of the season at a road course. And Jessica Shelton, who dropped a number of spots to 9th in the standings after last week's race, now has herself completely worry-free for next week at Indianapolis. She is locked into the next round of the chase for the championship. So Jessica Shelton, who I'm trying to remember which round she actually made it into back in season 8. And it seems like, I don't remember if she got eliminated in the 1st round or the 2nd round, but whichever the case, she's either going to beat or tie her highest running in the chase for the championship, because she will make it into the next round, the 2nd round. So Jessica Shelton, a victory here today at the road course at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. A good day overall for both the Retro Racing Enterprises drivers, as Charles Samper finished out the day in the 8th position. We only had a total of 3 chasers finish inside the top 10 today. Jessica Shelton with the win. Dylan Poteet, who really needed a good run, gets 5th place. And Ryan Acosta, another strong run for that 16 car, who very well might take over the points lead heading into next week, as he gets another top 10 finish. So Ryan Acosta looking good right now. Rest of our chasers, you got Cole Daly and Sean Galligan both finishing just outside of the top 10 in 11th and 12th place. Then you got to go quite a ways down before you find our next chaser, which would be John Cittadino in 21st. Cittadino came into this race 12th in the standings. A couple of drivers that he finished better than might be able to pass, but he's going to be really close to that danger zone. James Qualls in 23rd, Danny Wells in 25th. Cody Lamas worked his way all the way up to 26th, so a great run there for the 48. This may get him out of the danger zone. We'll have to see. Dougie Shears really never talked much about the 21. He fell back quite a bit and finished in 29th here today. And then the rest of the chasers, Tim Walsh was 32nd, Richard Johnson 33rd, Brandon Gonzalez 35th place finish. This is not going to help him after a dismal run last week. Can't even finish inside the top 30 here today. Trent Dunham. Now Trent ended up dropping all the way to 7th in the standings after last week. I thought that with his 3 wins with the bonus points last week that would help him, but with a 36th place run today, Trent Dunham's going to really have to scratch and claw next week. Jacob Lawler, he'll probably lose the points lead, but I think he'll still be safe, at least for now. He was able to kind of afford a poor run like this after a good run last week at Chicagoland. He'll get 37th. And then Austin LaPlante was actually the lowest finishing chaser today. He ended up finishing on the lead lap, even though he was damaged, in 39th position. LaPlante had worked his way up to 6th in the standings last week, so it'll be interesting to see where this poor finish situates him in the chase standings. Then we ended up having Austin Mongold, Zach Buchanan both finish a lap down, and Joshua Collard finished out of the race, the only retiree from today's event. DJ Curtis finishes the race in 3rd place. He will be the rookie of the race, so he closes the gap up between himself and Austin Mongold even closer heading into next week. Next week will be an eliminator round where drivers that finish out that event, 13th through 16th in the chase points, will not be battling for the rest of the season for the Snickers Cup Series Championship. Drivers 1st through 12th in the standings will move on to the next round. We know for certain that Jessica Shelton will be one of those drivers, regardless of what happens next week at Indianapolis. So congrats to her on her victory today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's race, be sure to give this video a like. Subscribe to become part of the crew today. We'll now show you your full finisher results from today's event, as well as your rookie points, overall points, and chase standings. You can check out and see who's in the danger zone heading into next week. As we'll see you next time at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, our first elimination race here in the chase for the championship on the NNSCRA Sports Channel. Offline racing at its best. Hey, thanks for watching another video here on the NNSCRA Sports and Gaming channel. If you enjoyed the content you just saw, be sure to give this video a like. If you want to join the crew today, be sure to hit up that subscribe button. And if you want to know what's going on in the world of NNSCRA for news and updates, check out the Facebook and Twitter links down below me. Once again, thanks for watching everybody, and I will see you guys next time. I'm out.